Okay, Year 5's on to our maths lesson now. We're continuing with everything that we did yesterday, so finding the equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages. But today we're taking it a step further and using a lot of knowledge that you have used previously last week, finding equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages by multiplying or dividing numbers. Okay, so it's bringing all of that together, really. You'll see what I mean when we get onto it. Let's start with a little warm-up. So which of these fractions are equivalent to each other? So the same as each other. All right, have a little look at all of them. Think about the multiplying that I told you. Remember, whatever you do to the top, you've got to do to the bottom. See if you can find which ones are the same. Okay, I'm going to give you a little clue. 4 of them are the same. Okay, so which 4 are equivalent fractions? Can you pause the video, please, and find out for me? Okay. So if you have a little look, the easiest way I think to start is by looking at the one with the smallest numbers. So here you've got 1/8. Now let's see if any of the other fractions are equivalent to 1/8. All right, so you can look at 4/24. So how do I get from 1 to 4? I times by 4. So if I do 8 times 4, do I get 24? No, I don't. 8 times 4 is 32. So 1/8 is not equivalent to 4/24. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's look at 3/24. So how do I get from 1 to 3? I times by 3. Therefore, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So let's see. 8 times 3, is that 24? Yes, it is. So 1/8 is equal to 3/24. That's 2 fractions. Let's have a little look further. Let's look at 6 over 42. How do I get from 1 to 6? I'm timesing by 6. So what is 8 times 6? Is it 42? No. 8 times 6 is 48. So this is not equivalent to 1/8. Okay, let's look at 7 over 56. How do I get from 1 to 7? I'm timesing by 7 this time. So what is 8 times 7? This is testing your tables, isn't it? 8 times 7 is 56. So 7 over 56 is equivalent to 1/8. Okay, so far we've got 1/8 is the same as 7/56. Is the same as 3 over 24. Okay, but it's not the same as 4/24, and it's not the same as 6 over 42. So let's look at our last one. How do I get from 1 to 9? I times by 9. So let's look at the bottom. 8 times 9 is 72. So 9 over 72 is also equivalent to 1/8. Okay, so these are your 4 equivalent fractions. So all you're doing is choosing any fraction to start with. I simply chose the smallest one because it's the easiest in my eyes to start with. Okay, you could start with the largest one or you could start with any one, but the smallest one is easier to deal with. Then you work out how you get from the top numerator to this top numerator. And then that is what you are doing to the bottom numbers as well, to see if they are equivalent. Okay, so let's move on. Here you are matching fractions, decimals and percentages, just like you did yesterday. However, they've not made it quite as simple as it was yesterday. All right, so let's start with 40% because this one is an easy one to do. Have a look at these 3 here. Which one is equivalent to 40%? Okay, hopefully you have seen that 0.4 is the same as 40%. Okay, because look here, you've got 4 tens there. Okay, 40% is 0.4. Now, let's look at 0.8, more tricky one. You should recognise that this is the same as 80%, but we don't have 80% here. It's also the same as 80 over 100, but again, we don't have 80 over 100. So let's look at this fraction. It's 4/5. Now, this is not friendly at all. So let's double the top and the bottom. 4/5, is the same as 8/10. 8/10 is exactly what we've got here. 8/10. Okay, so these two are equivalent. So all we had to do with this one is multiply the top and the bottom by 2. Now, I'm hoping that you will recognise 1/4 as 25%. Okay, this is a fraction that a fraction and a percentage that you need to learn and you need to know off by heart. Likewise, 1/2 is 50% or 0.50, and 3/4 is 75%. Those are ones that you need to learn. Okay, so those are your answers there. Hopefully you can see, even if you didn't know to start with, hopefully you can see how I worked out which one matches which one. Okay, now you've got to circle the equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages. So have a little look. Which ones do you think are the same? So can you pause the video and just have a think, please? Okay, so you can choose any to start with. I'm going to look at 1/4 because we've just been talking about 1/4. We know that 1/4 is the same as 25% or 0.25. I can see that none of these match that at all. So I don't think 1/4 is part of my equivalent fractions. I can also see that 0.5 you should recognise as 50% or 50 over 100. And once again, I can see that these four decimals, fractions and percentages, they're not 50%. Okay, so we're left with 4 different ones here. Now we've got 0.2 here. I can see 0.2 is the same as 20%, which is 20 over 100. So these two are the same. But they're not the same as 15% because that's obviously a smaller amount. And 15% as a decimal is 0.15. So that's not the same. So far 0.2 and 20% are the same. Now what about this fraction? We can't do anything with it as fifths. So what do we need to turn it into? Tenths. So we turn it into tenths by doubling the top and the bottom. So 1/5 is the same as 2/10. 2/10, I'm hoping you will recognise you've got your 2/10 here. So these 3 are equivalent fractions, decimals and percentages. Okay, it's a case of looking at every single answer and working out to see if they match. All right. Another question. True or false? 10 over 25 is equal to 0.25. What do you think? Okay, I'm hoping you don't fall for the trick and say yes. Just because you see a 25 here, you think, oh yes, that's the answer, because it is false. It is not the answer. The reason it is not the answer is because this is not in hundredths. You need to change it to hundredths before you can convert it to a decimal, okay, or a percentage. How do we convert it to hundredths? We times it by 4 because 25 times 4 equals 100. Then we do the same to the top. 10 times 4 is 40. So 10 over 25 is equal to 40 over 100. I hope you will then be able to recognise that 40 over 100 is 40% or 0.4 or 0.40, which is not 0.25. Okay, meaning that this fraction here, is greater than 0.25. Okay, because it's 40 over 100. So the answer is false. Okay, another question for you. Have a little look at the table. A table that's very similar to the ones that you've done already. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to convert it. Pause the video and have a little try working out all of the answers, please. Okay, if you have got 0.6, okay, you have got 6/10 or 60 over 100. As a percentage, that is 60%. Okay, now for the fractions, you were given 40 out of 50. In order to work out the decimal and percentage, you need to multiply these to make it hundredths. All right, so we're going to times it by 2. So 40 over 50 will become 80 over 100, which is then 0.8 and 80%. Your 50% is 0.5 and 5/10 or 50 over 100. Okay, also known as a half. Okay, it doesn't matter if you've written a half or 5/10 or 50 over 100. All three are acceptable answers because they are equivalent. They mean the same. Likewise, the answer here is stated as 3/5, but if you have written 6/10 or 60 over 100, that is also acceptable because they are equivalent fractions. All right? Another one, circle the odd one out. Once again, can you pause the video and work out which one is the odd one out, please? Okay, so slightly easier this one, I would say. You can hopefully see straight away that 0.6 is 6/10, okay, because it's 6 in your tenths column, which straight away I'm hoping you'll recognise 6/10 is the same as 60 over 100, which is your 60%. Okay, so those three are equivalent. 30 over 50 is the same as 60 over 100, so that again is equal to 60% or 0.6. Okay, 3/5 is the same as 6/10, so once again you have got your 6/10. So here you are only left with 30 over 100 or 30%. So that is your odd one out. All right. Last question. 3 friends are sharing a pie. Jacob eats 0.5 of the pie, Alicia eats 20% and Greg eats 5/20. Who eats the most pie and who eats the least? You need to convert to the same amount. So for example, change all of them to decimals, all of them to percentages, or all of them to fractions. It doesn't matter which one you choose, but you can only compare them if you have the same amount for each. Okay, so pause the video and see if you can convert them into whichever ones you want to. Okay, I converted mine to percentages. So Jacob's 0.5 is 50%. Greg's 5/20, I times the top and the bottom by 5, making it 25 over 100, which is 25%. So now that they're all in percentages, I can see quite clearly that Jacob eats the most and Alicia eats the least pie. Okay, right, can you now have a go at the do, think and explain questions, please, and mark your work. Good luck, Year 5. Thank you.